My name is KG Martinez. My pronouns are they and she. I live in Colorado and have been doing community work in Colorado since before I had language for it. I currently run Nepantla Navigations, which is a coaching and consulting organization working with movement folks, and work alongside Rev. Angel Kyoto Williams around some racial healing and embodiment work.
Talk to us about your change process and why it's important for the work you do.
My relationship to change has evolved significantly over the past few years after being part of the Warriors for Embodied Liberation program with Rusia. I don't think I had an intentional relationship to change and transformation before then. And the ways in which I've learned about how to be with change, how to be with all of the things that come up with change, the resistance I feel in my body, the old shapings and aspects of myself that come through that I thought were dormant or that I thought weren't part of me anymore but were just dormant, about how resistance is actually part of the work of change, has been huge. When I first joined the Well community, I was a couple months pregnant. I was working in philanthropy. I had recently bought a home. And since then, I have completely uprooted the way in which I do community work, left the realm, the world of philanthropy, have learned how to engage and change when it comes to being a parent to a young child, and divested from home and my sense of home in so many ways as I'm really trying to learn what it means to be in the movement, in my relationship to the movement and movement work, and in this world that we find ourselves in, where it feels like change is a constant, more so than ever before. So my relationship to change is actually, as shaped by being in the Well community, is about learning how to be with it, to be with myself, to not to fight my own impulse for control when it comes to time, when it comes to progress, when it comes to just even knowing what's next.
Wonderful.
Women of color leadership is what will make this time of monumental change in the movement, in the ways that we even think about what it means to be in the movement. Women of color leadership is what is going to make or break it. As we navigate this really complex time, part of the work is learning how we turn towards each other, how we nurture each other and care for each other, while also doing other forms of powerful and badass things. And women of color know how to do that more than it is in our bones. And we know how to do it more than anyone on this planet. And so I do not think that we will survive this time without women of color being at the helm of our movement, and us really listening to women of color, especially Black and brown women, especially Black women, women who are darker than myself as a mixed race woman of color, right? I navigate the world in ways that still oscillate with my skin privilege and my adjacent to whiteness, right? And so even within what we talk about women of color, right, it is important to understand that it is not the same experience for women of color across color lines, right? And so I would even further say, beyond women of color should be at the helm and at the center of this movement, Black women, women who are darker than me, who navigate with no racial ambiguity, right? And so I genuinely believe that our movement at this time is the only way through. My work with Mukti and Universal Partnership started with bringing the LEO program to Colorado. It was in the height of the pandemic in 2020. We had been planning to bring Rusia out in person, and shifted to bringing Leo out virtually, where we had simultaneous interpretation in both Spanish and English in this virtual setting, while Rusia was offering this to organizers across the state, and especially in rural communities in Colorado. And in that moment, that's when I realized I knew I needed to study under Rusia. Learned about the Warriors for Embodied Liberation program, and have spent the last few years of my life deeply integrated and embedded in that work, and vice versa. It has completely shifted how I approach community work, how I approach life, how I approach parenthood, how I approach relationships, for me on a cellular level. I am able to be present with myself, first and foremost, with the people that I love, and show up to my own leadership, show up to my own understanding of what it means to do movement work in a completely different way. Often, and I think this is the case with a lot of women of color, I was thrust into a leadership position kind of early on and with no training, with no even formal training or support on what it actually means to be a good leader, a good supervisor, how to care for myself in a place of leadership. And so there's been a lot of retroactive ways I've had to learn that for myself, understanding that intuitively came up in ways that were just already in my body. And the shift that has happened now that I have been in deep practice of meditation, of journaling, of Joe, of accountable relationships, of learning the truth of myself alongside other people learning the truth of themselves, right? How to be in collective. That all has happened in a way that I never thought was possible until, well, in my experience of the movement and the pockets of the movement that I have been in, there's a lot of people, and especially now, using jargon around embodiment, around slowing down, around what it means to do healing work, right? And in a lot of cases, I think that people long for that while using that language, but don't actually know how to be in practice around their own healing, around being present with what's coming up and through. I did not know. And through my work with Mukti and Universal Partnerships, especially through the Warriors for Embodied Liberation program, I've actually learned what it means to be in practice around pain and discomfort, around transformation, around being in tough conflict with people even that I love, or that we might be doing adjacent work, and we have different ideas around what needs to happen. Doing that in a way that is moving with love forward, right? Moving in love and care, but in a way that can be direct, in a way that can be that doesn't have to be like nice, soft, but like kind, right? So I have learned what it means to both somehow soften my edges and stand in integrity and dignity at the same time, which sometimes means that softening is more direct, more clear. As someone who has been in a place of facilitation and holding space for a lot of community-based conflict, I have been able to shift the way I even energetically hold a room, that in a way that has completely changed my own facilitation style, my ability to truly hold discomfort, not only for myself but for others, that we can actually shift and move through it, versus trying to force a resolution versus trying to move towards stock stories or stock ways of thinking. How do we do DEI type of work, right? This is the work of Mukti, and all that I have learned under Rusia Muhyiddin has made the movement actually feel possible and not hopeless, because I can actually feel it in my body, how things are changing. I can feel it in my relationships, that they are truer and more, truer. I don't know how else to say that. And that, like, the way in which I can even step into honesty and truth, come up against my own self, and I'm like, oh wait, am I the problem? Or am I lying to myself? Right? Not in the good way, but like, and so the practices that come with this work really help us confront who we are and tell the truth of our contradictions, and still know that we can be loved on the other side of that. And actually more so when you can do that work alongside other people who are doing the exact same thing, and actually doing it not for themselves, but really for the whole planet.